see you all. The last live of 2023. How was 2023 for you all? I would say for me, 2023 was definitely better than 2022, which was definitely better than 2021, and God, definitely better than 2020. So I guess we're on the upswing of better years, right? And moving forward. So I'm going to let you guys join in. I am live on multiple platforms today, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. So I want to make sure everyone's connected. If you're able to comment, say hello, send a heart, send a thumbs up, let me know that my sound is good, all is good. I so appreciate that. Nothing's worse than losing your tech during a live broadcast. I feel like my head is chopped off on Facebook there. There we go. So good morning. Am I being seen on Facebook or YouTube or LinkedIn? If I am, please give me a yes. Hello, all good. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone coming in. Happy New Year. Who did that? I have all these. Wow, who did that? That was awesome. I have no idea how to use Instagram and make fireworks go up behind my head. For those of you on the other platform, someone set off fireworks behind my head, which was really awesome. Am I live on Facebook? Well, anyway, we're just going to jump in. So I want to talk about something today because, to be honest, I've been a little bit frustrated with some of the news stories that I've been seeing. And then, so I want to talk about the immune system today. Because if any of you, hi, Erin, thank you. If any of you have been reading the news lately, particularly here in Arizona, it's talking about the triple-demic and how we're all sick. And we are, right? Pretty much everyone around me has been sick with this cough that won't go away, right? And that's the truth. However, what do you do about it? Why is it worse? Why is it worse, right? Is it worse for real, right? And no, it's not. We always have these viruses going around. These viruses are not new. They're always here. But what's interesting is I watch a lot of different people talk, right? And I listen to different health and wellness leaders. And obviously the functional medicine world, the naturopathic world, we've been a little bit ahead of the game on this particular topic for many, many years. But now I'm seeing conventional doctors come out and go, hey, by the way, cortisol is really a problem. Stress is really a problem. It's impacting our health. Hey, guess what, guys? Yeah, yes. And here's the thing is we don't talk about it. We don't treat it. We don't do anything about it. We sit there and say, well, you need to take your vitamins. You need to eat right. You need to exercise. That's not wrong. But why does that work? Is it just about the movement? Is it just about the nutrition? No, because those things also lower the stress on your body. They help it function better. So when we're faced with being exposed to viruses, bacteria, fungus, which, by the way, we have always been exposed to, right? Why is it that we're catching these colds and we're not recovering and we're not moving forward? And there was an article I read yesterday that, of course, was pushing certain treatments. It was very biased 100%, but it was like, well, it's because so many people masked and hid out, for years, and now they're finally coming out and we're getting all these viruses. Okay, it's a fair point. Here in Arizona, we've been out for years. Yeah, and we're still getting it. So I don't know, if that's 100% it. What I would like to argue that's not being discussed, that needs to be discussed, is the impact of the stress of the pandemic, the economy, the energy of the world in the last few years, and how that's having an impact on our stress response and our cortisol response. And perhaps that's a part that we're not actively treating. Does anyone agree with that? Right? So I sit here and talk about stress all day long. And if you're a client of mine, we talk about this a lot, right? But you can take all the vitamins in the world. But if your body is under stress, it's not going to absorb them. So looking for all these magic solutions and all these magic pills and all these things is not going to help if you don't start addressing the stress. And the stress is addressed by looking at 4 different things. And this is what my 4 pillars are. So this is what I talk about in my book, Total Health Turnaround. This is what I talk about in my group program, Total Energy Turnaround. This is what I talk about with my one-on-one clients all the time. It's what I do my webinars on, my broadcasts on, is you've got to look at 4 different aspects. And it's not as surface level as it may seem. So nutrition. Why is nutrition important? Well, of course, nutrition is important for our immune system because we need nutrients in order to activate our immune system. So directly it's important, but also proper nutrition will repair the pathways that have been damaged by stress. So when we run the lifestyles we're under, which are very driven by emotional reaction, you know what I mean by that? Fear, anger, hate, disgust, annoyance, right? We burn through B vitamins. We burn through vitamin C. Our gut flora gets totally thrown off. We burn through our minerals like magnesium and zinc and selenium, all of these things that are important for immune function and also for regulating our thyroid and our hormones and our hair and our skin and our nails and our mood and all these wonderful things. So we need to not only look at nutrition just on a surface level, but also how does that now give the body what it needs to manage what's coming at it? Number 2 is exercise. Guys, exercise is so minimal in this country. We do not move. We sit in front of screens all day long, right? And if we do move, we don't move as much as we should, right? Important things to that when it comes to immune function. Number 1, moving definitely helps move your body to release stress, to move energy out. If you talk to anyone who does like traditional Chinese medicine and they're looking at the energetics of the body, we need to move. We don't want things stagnant. When things get stagnant, we get sick. Okay, stagnation is bad in the TCM world, in the Chinese medicine world. You don't want things stuck. You want things flowing. You want energy flowing. You want to be sharing positive energy. You want to be like emitting it, right? So it does help us move, but it also helps with those metabolic pathways for using those nutrients to get things done and produce energy, okay? Also, tons of research on exercise boosting immune function. But when we get stressed, what's the first thing you give up on? Come on. I do. When I'm stressed out, I have to force myself to exercise because it's the first thing I'll be like, I just have other things to do, right? And it's usually when I take a poll of people and say, what's the first thing that you drop? How many of you are like, oh, I'm going to get back to my exercise class after the holidays, right? Sleep, food, right? I'm going to get back to this after this. That's cortisol, kids. That's what it is. I was talking to someone yesterday and she's like, oh my God, there's just been stuff coming at me. Like I gave up on my diet. I've been doing takeout more. But I just got to get through it all. Guess what? That's a cortisol response. That's more indication that you need to take more time for you, right? That's actually your body saying, hey, take care of me, okay? Number 3 is supplementation. Supplementation is really important. There's a reason I have a supplement line dedicated to stress replenishment, right? It is really important. But if you're not addressing the other aspects of these 4 pillars, you won't absorb those nutrients as well. You won't use them as well, right? And then lastly, looking at mindset. Now, this is kind of where it all starts and where it all ends. It's like a cycle. So going back to, is stress the reason why we're not overcoming these illnesses as easily or why people are struggling with it more this year, right? When we're triggered by any sort of emotion, right, we have a physiological response to that. So for example, what really does bother me is when they come up with a story that says, this year is worse than any other year. Be careful. Don't go outside. It's promoting fear. That fear then promotes a cortisol response. That cortisol response then makes your immune system weaker. It depletes nutrients, right? It gives you a shift in your prefrontal cortex to make choices that maybe aren't as wise for you. It allows other people to push that boundary on you where you give into them rather than yourself, right? It's not good. We need to be talking about it. And now we're seeing doctors come out and saying, hey, did you know that stress impacts immune function? Gosh, we should really put together a supplement to address stress. That's great. But that doesn't do it. You have to look at those 4 different pillars. You have to look at this. And it does I get very passionate and I get very excited about it because 1, I am glad that people are recognizing finally what an impact this whole entire situation over the last few years has had on our health, mentally, physically, and with adrenal fatigue. Like I'm excited about that, but I'm frustrated that they're just saying it and they're not offering any realistic solution. Or it's like, because we're under stress, now you need to get more this or more that have nothing to do with actually repairing the stress response. They're just Band-Aids, right? And this is supposed to be some new concept. Does anyone else get me on this? Anyone else agree? How do you guys feel about everything you're seeing and everything going on right now? Do you feel like that stress is starting to become more and more apparent to you? More and more that you're letting other people's emotions come in? Yes. All right. Good. Right? Here's the thing. You can't get well until you recognize what's happening. And when you recognize what's happening, you have to seek out people that can help you with that. So any of you that are like, yeah, I'm done with this crap. I'm done being influenced by everybody else. I need to get my health on track. Reach out to me because it does need to be done, right? Yes, we have to do something about it. As a mom, I look at my kids and I go, God, what are we training them? My God, we are training them to have this heightened fear response, to this heightened anger response, to this whatever that energy is that floats around. And I'm not saying everyone gives into that. I surround myself with people that are wonderfully energetic and bright and joyful and optimistic and, taking control of their health, and they're awesome. So this isn't a all-in-one bucket thing, but you can have like one person who's a negative Nancy that ruins it for the entire room, right? We need to block those people out, right? I did have a question, and feel free to start asking questions, guys. I know I'm on a roll, but I wanted to kind of bring this up as a topic to talk about because I feel like we don't. We talk about, take your vitamin C. Stay away from people, but we don't talk about, hey, while you're staying away from people, while you're chilling out, while you're taking your vitamin C, how about we address the stress in the room? The elephant in the room is we are overstimulated and we are getting sicker. Cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, regular viruses, illnesses, pneumonia, Alzheimer's, right? We're getting heavier. We're getting slower, right? This isn't good. Compare that to cultures that really prioritize stress response and community and support, and you'll see an entirely different outcome. I had a question from Andrea. What about cortisol release during dreams? Any thought on that? You're naturally a normal cortisol rhythm. A natural cortisol rhythm can be helpful to the body. We're talking about chronic stimulation of cortisol where it's just out of rhythm, right? So ideally your cortisol is lower when you sleep, but if your brain is remembering things that trigger a cortisol response, often it'll wake you up. I believe you can mitigate that. Although there is some cortisol release when you dream as well. You should be sleeping through the night though, right? So imagine like when I was going through med school, I would wake up in the middle of the night with like these crazy dreams, right? Because I was stressed out, right? I even think for like 3 years after I graduated, I kept waking up thinking I had a test, right? And that was some sort of my brain's reaction to some sort of like worry about something, right? And it wasn't until I let that go and reminded myself that I don't have to do that anymore, then those dreams went away. So I think for me, I'm not saying that all cortisol is bad, and I'm not saying it's not part of normal physiological function. It actually is. The problem is how often we release it and how that chronic release impacts our blood sugar, our heart, our immune function, our ability to be reasonable and analytical in thought. We're losing a lot of analytical thought. Hello from 30,000 feet over New Mexico. Oh, hello. That's funny. But it's interesting. Yeah, I think there needs to be I have a question about exercise. Does exercise not cause more stress in the body? Great question. So first of all, does exercise release cortisol? Yes, right? So if you're someone who doesn't have a control over the cortisol, you have to change the way you exercise. Now, for me, I do a lot of Pilates. And so actually that's building muscle while also accessing parasympathetic nervous system, which means less cortisol output versus going when I do hip hop dance, I'm pushing out cortisol output. So cortisol, like I said, is not bad. It needs to be released. The question is when and why, right? So if you go and you do a really hard workout and you're exhausted afterwards, that's an indication that your cortisol rhythms are off. You should be able to work out and feel good afterwards. And if not, you have to shift the way you exercise. There has been tons of studies on walking, Pilates, yoga, Tai Chi, stretching, dancing that actually lower cortisol function. They actually help support the cortisol pathways and improve parasympathetic nervous system versus things like HIIT, CrossFit. Sorry, guys. Now, if you have great adrenal function, you can do those, but they will push you to extremes, right? So you have to find that limit. Nothing is ever 100% bad or 100% good. I think that's what I'm talking about. Actually, in society, we're learning this. You're either over here, you're over here. There's no in between. And we're going to lose that analytical thought and that idea to say, okay, we might need to balance this on an individual basis. We might need to see what's good for me, what's not, versus applying everything to everybody. Does that make sense? Does that help? So exercise actually will lower cortisol levels if done appropriately in the right amount for where you're at. And there have been many clients that I've said, look, you can't do this HIIT class right now. I want you to focus on Pilates or yoga. And they go, what? I don't know. That's not hard enough. And they notice that once they do that, they start slimming down. Their muscle tone gets better, right? They start implementing more protein intake. They start meditating, relaxing, manifesting positivity and positive action. And I noticed that their health starts to drastically improve. Drastically. And that 10 pounds that they couldn't lose forever going to HIIT class all of a sudden starts coming off. But there's a mindset shift that has to happen there because we've been trained that if you eat less and you exercise more, you lose weight. And that's not true anymore. We're too stressed out. So when we eat less and exercise more, we stress ourselves out more often, right? And the body's hanging on fat because of that. Let's see. Resting helps me and tuning out the world. Very good. I won't over-exercise anymore. Gentle movement. Very good. All right. I do have a question here, a little bit off the topic. Thank you for jumping in on the immune and stress response. I'm glad they're talking about it in the conventional world, but I wish they would recognize the implications that, or the solutions that those of us in integrative medicine have been implementing for years and why we see such great success. And I would encourage any of you that are stuck somewhere, if you feel like stress is having an impact on you, you feel like you could use help and support in this, reach out, okay? Apply to work with me, wait for my group programs to come out, buy my book, do whatever you need to do to start educating yourself on how to lower that stress response. Because this is going to continue to get worse if we don't make a physical change right now. Yeah? Okay. Heading in a massively stressful situation right now, it was suggested I get a proactive IV treatment. Any thoughts on that? Absolutely, Steve. Myers cocktails are fantastic for that. Now, they will push toxins through and they will move things through. So have a little bit of a mindset around it that you might be a little bit tired afterwards, particularly if you've been utilizing a lot of those nutrients. So practice a lot of mindfulness with that. Okay. All right, you have a question about the birth control pill. Let's talk that. Sound fun? Is this all good? Thumbs up, hearts, yes, cool. How long, this is from Melissa, how long should someone be off a birth control pill before doing hormonal testing to check for estrogen dominance and perimenopause? My OB/GYN said I must go off before testing. Yeah, so it is important to go off before testing because you will have a false reading. I usually try to wait 3 months if possible. However, there have been times I've done it as soon as 6 weeks, particularly if you're having a lot of symptoms. So periods are coming back really heavy. I've had some people that have come off the pill and they just bleed constantly. And obviously I don't want that to keep going. So sometimes they will test a little bit sooner. If it's pretty non-eventful, I usually try to wait 3 months because there's kind of this 3-month cycle of hormone shifting. I see it in adrenal, I see it in thyroid, and I see it in the sex hormones where you might get a decent reading a little bit sooner, but it could still shift again. So if you do it after 6 weeks, I'd probably plan on doing it again 2 months later, just because things do shift at that 3-month mark. That's a great question. Also, timing of that draw is really important. You want to draw it during the luteal phase, which is typically the 3rd week of the cycle, which is, if you have a different length cycle, look at it this way, 7 to 10 days before you're supposed to bleed. And the reason being is if you really want to look for estrogen dominance, you need to look with it in balance to progesterone. You only get a progesterone reading. This is really important. You only get a progesterone reading in the 3rd week of your cycle. So if your doctor's like running it in week 1 and they're like, oh my God, you're out of progesterone, we got to give you progesterone. Well, of course you're out of progesterone. That's normal. The progesterone goes up in the 3rd week of the cycle. in preparation for pregnancy or implantation. So you want to run that against each other in the 3rd week so you can see how much estrogen do I have in balance to progesterone. You may have tons of estrogen, but you may also have tons of progesterone. If they're in balance to each other, yes, you may want to lower them a little bit equally, but you wouldn't want to go hardcore on dropping a ton of estrogen if the progesterone is going to remain high. You want to drop them together. So there's some different treatments that are available based on that response. So that's when you look at, do I want just general liver support? Do I want to target estrogen specifically, like DIM, indole 3-carbinol? Are they low overall but even? Are they high overall but even? Or are they imbalanced? Those are 3 questions, right? Also, when you look at estrogens, guys, make sure you look at estrone and estradiol, not just estradiol. The estrogen dominant estrogen is estrone. And there's a beautiful balance between those. So at that time in the cycle, they should be about 2 to 1 estradiol to estrone. So you want half the estrone to estradiol. Now, sometimes it's a little bit off. Like you might be nothing's ever perfect in hormones because the timing, like one day could be different than another day. So this is just a general rule. You want the estrone less than the estradiol for sure. And at that time, you should have a nice progesterone response coming up to match it. Does that help? Hello to everyone joining. Okay, I have another question from Andrea. Hi, Corey. Thank you. He says, thank you for continuously staying on top of this topic. Good. Thank you. I do have 3 for 1 or a bundle of 3 on my website for supplements if you do want to stock up on vitamin C, and some stress support and things like that. If you buy 3, you get 10% off. But make sure you're also looking at the mindset, the exercise, and the nutrition. Okay, guys? Don't just do it one thing. One thing won't work when it comes to stress. This is a whole body transformation. And you'll always struggle with it. I still struggle with it. The holidays can get me. That's why I've done some of the funny memes and stuff about the holidays lately, because it's like, and some people don't like them. I know some people are like, think I'm bashing, but it's more just like, it's the stuff that we just take for granted. We just like, we just accept it. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, we don't have to stress out over this, like we making a choice to stress out over the holidays. We're making a choice to make everything perfect. We're making a choice to let the world, the negativity of the world impact us. And so sometimes I just like to make, funny memes about that to make you guys laugh. So hopefully you've enjoyed them. Corey says to follow up on that, and then I'll hop over to Andrea over here. I'm caregiving for an elderly woman who is dealing with long COVID symptoms and fibromyalgia. Those usually go hand in hand, by the way. I was able to get to her, the dog, and myself out in the sunshine yesterday for 30 minutes and 40-degree weather. The results of the 40 minutes outside has calmed the house down 180%. Yeah, being outside is really important. There is a very strong link they're finding also between chronic pain syndromes, depression, and long COVID symptoms. They kind of overlap each other, right? So you see a lot of the similar symptoms in those. People with chronic Epstein-Barr, people with cytomegalovirus, people with fibromyalgia, people with chronic fatigue syndrome, people with severe adrenal fatigue, stage 3 adrenal fatigue, have a lot of those long COVID symptoms. But now it's hard for me to distinguish, is it really long COVID or was it an exasperation of what was already there? The viruses that were already there, the fatigue that was already there, the depression was already there. Now are they overlapping so much that we don't know what's what, right? And was there significant damage to the mitochondria from the virus? That's the other question. And there's a lot of discussion over that. And I don't think anyone knows the exact answer, but what we are pretty clear on is we need to support, number 1, the cortisol response. We need to support nutrition. We need to support movement. We need to support and replenish those things being lost, whether they be antioxidants. Antioxidants in this particular case would be really important to help support the mitochondria. And we need to start working on mindset. All 4 of those apply to every single condition. You name any condition out there, they are all improved if you look at those 4 pillars together. So being outside, getting the vitamin D outside, taking vitamin D, those types of things, so important. Reconnecting with the earth, reconnecting with your heart, reconnecting with your soul. Blocking out energies that are not useful to you, really important in healing from anything. Great. Okay, Andrea says, I had a traumatic experience with a severe concussion. Yeah. And I feel like my cortisol levels are so much higher, even though I meditate and do stress relief practice. I'm curious about the concussion and cortisol. Yeah, actually, there's quite a few doctors that post on that quite a lot. Dr. Titus Chu, Chiu, Titus. I'm not sure if that's his handle. You could find him. He posts a lot on that. He talks about traumatic brain injury and the cortisol relationship to that. It is very real. Traumatic brain injury is just as that. It is traumatic. Okay. And that has an impact on our stress response. We go into survival mode, right? Our body always wants to survive. So anything that puts it into that mode will actually continue to stimulate cortisol and cause problems. He talks a lot about that. Dr. Bryce Applebaum does vision therapy. He's an ophthalmologist, but he also talks a lot about the brain and cortisol connection and brain injury and how that impacts not only our vision, but also cortisol levels. So that's another one to follow. There's actually quite a few doctors in the functional arena that are starting to really specialize in that. There's so many more. If I think of more, I'll type them below. Yeah. Thank you. What kind of cocktail? Oh, from the IV. Okay, so Steve was talking about he's going into a stressful situation right now, and he was saying that someone had recommended that he get an IV treatment. And so they call it a Myers cocktail. It dates way back, but it's essentially vitamin C, B vitamins, a ton of minerals like magnesium, zinc, selenium. Typically has a glutathione push with it and hydration, and you hook it up to the arm. If you are in the hospital, ever worked in the hospital, they might call it a banana bag. They would use it for alcoholics to recover them. If you go to Vegas, you see IV clinics everywhere to recover you from hangover, right? Most of that is just replenishing what you've depleted. But if you do it proactively, you're also putting these nutrients directly into the body to be utilized. Now, in my case, it was interesting. The last time I have had 2 IVs in the last month, and I had one proactively because my family was sick. And it was great. And I had so much energy. Oh my God. I cleaned the entire house. I was like a ball of craziness. And then the next week I noticed I had a small sniffle. Like my nose felt like it was getting kind of stuffed up. And I was like, oh shoot, I've got to travel. So I'm going to take a proactive IV. Well, it kind of did the opposite. I had a lymphatic massage. I went and exercised to move my lymphatics, and I had an IV with glutathione, and that just pushed that virus into the forefront. It brought it right up for me. And I had a fever of probably 102, 103 for about 6 hours. Now, when I woke up the next day, I was markedly better, like markedly better, but it pushed all of that to the surface for my immune system to handle. So it can also exasperate in some respects, but it makes it shorter duration. I do like them. And anyone who's dealing, like when Corey was talking about long COVID, fibromyalgia, we were talking about chronic pain syndromes or chronic syndromes, IV therapy can be really helpful. I also get great success with people with any type of IBD. So celiac disease, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, they do great with regular IV therapy, such as that, but it's called a Myers cocktail. I hope that helps. Yes, thank you. I guess I'm wondering exactly where the cortisol response is generated from the trauma, right? Think about it. You're in the woods, you're minding your own business. Someone comes along and whacks you over the back of the head and you fall to the ground and you wake up and you don't know where you are. That's a survival instinct right there. Is there a bear coming? Where was I? What happened? Did I lose something? What's going on? Where am I, right? That's very scary. Right? There's a fear response there. And that fear response is triggered to our nervous system. Our nervous system has that response. So and you'll see this with medications and stuff too. Like you'll see certain medications that stimulate the sympathetic nervous response or block sympathetic nervous response. So yeah, it's the sympathetic nervous system responding to a trauma, which is a normal physiological reaction. If you're in the woods and you see a bear, you're going to react. If you see a car accident in front of you, your nervous system immediately kicks in. It's uncontrollable in that moment, right? There's no way you can control that moment. All you can do is control the healing afterwards. And you're doing the right things. You're meditating. You're doing what you can. Your body's not ready to let that go yet. I would maybe encourage, and the reason I say follow possibly Titus is he may have some resources and activities for you as well that specifically look to the reconnection of the brain. But I would say, look more into the mindset, deeper into maybe past traumas that might have been re-stimulated by that trauma that maybe need to be worked through. Those would be some things to consider if it's not recovering. But you also have to give yourself grace. It takes time for the body to recover from that. The body will always default to survival mode. Always, 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 to save your life. So you now have to convince your body that you're no longer in trauma. And there's probably brain swelling, right? There's probably damage directly to the head. That's traumatic. There's an inflammatory response. Takes time for that to go down, right? Does that make sense? Well, hello everyone that joined in. Hello. Yeah, where in the body is it generated? Yeah, the sympathetic nervous system action on the adrenal glands. Does that make sense? So when we have a trigger in the brain dictates what we're going to do. And what it does is the brain sympathetic nervous system says, oh my God, trauma. And then the adrenal glands say, oh my God, release stuff. And then everything else gets downregulated so that you can run. And then that becomes chronic, especially if you're trying to repair from things anyone who's had an injury, let's say a sports injury, let's say you blow out your knee, right? The energy that it takes for that repair uses a huge combination of immune system, inflammation, sympathetic nervous system. All these things come into play and they all work with each other. So the body has to figure it out like a puzzle, right? So that's when you really have to be careful about those external stresses and blocking out the things that are not necessary so you can focus all that energy on healing, right? And that's where the meditation comes in, the mindset comes in. And that's a lot of work. It's not easy. And people need help with it. Like, people don't come to me and they have one appointment with me and I'm like, oh, by the way, you need to do that. And they get it perfectly. Never. Like, I touch base with my clients all the time. We talk about this. I talk about it with them. If there's any out there, we talk about this all the time, don't we? Because it's a constant. You have to be reminded because that brain takes over and forgets. So we have to constantly bring that up. Hey, how are you doing? Like, what's going on in your life right now? Talk to me about it. That's half of my doctoring right there, right? I see a question off topic from Erin. Thoughts on fiber supplementation? Yeah. Okay. So ideally, we get enough fiber from our diet. However, some people do have higher fiber requirements. I personally take fiber every single night. I don't think it's that I'm not getting fiber because I eat a plant-based diet, but I don't eat grains like standard American diet. I don't eat bread. I don't eat those types of things that would bring more fiber in. And I find that my digestion is better when I supplement fiber. I find that my bowel movements are better. My mood is better. I feel less bloated. When I forget it, I don't feel as good. So for me, my body likes that extra fiber component. There's a lot of research, guys, and this is totally underutilized in the conventional society on cholesterol. So much research on just increasing fiber and lowering cholesterol. Now, let me also point out that cholesterol makes cortisol. Let me say that again. Cholesterol makes cortisol. Why is that a problem? If you're under stress, it doesn't matter what you do, your body will make more cholesterol in order to run from the bear. So in conjunction, again, improve the nutrition, make sure you have enough fiber, supplement if needed, but also look at the stress response, yeah? Why do you take it at night? Because, okay, TMI, TMI moment. I take liver support, magnesium, vitamin C, and fiber at night so that I can wake up in the morning and remove the toxins from my body effectively. As opposed to taking it in the morning and maybe being busy and therefore not allowing my body to react, relax, detoxify, and remove toxins. Have you guys ever noticed, like, if you have a big trip coming up or something, and let's say you have to run to the airport or you have a big event, you don't have a bowel movement in the morning because your body's already like, oh, no, I got to get this done. I got to get moving. You have to be in a parasympathetic state in order to go to the bathroom. So a lot of the times, especially with my clientele, I find that they're very busy people. And so we have to do that support at night so that while they sleep and they're sleeping deep, the body can, do what it needs to do. So when you wake up and get moving, you go to the bathroom. So that's why I take it at night. Does that help? Okay. Okay. I had a couple more questions over here. We're still okay on time. I got a few more minutes. Okay. So if you want to throw some more questions at me, go for it. I hope this has been helpful. Has this been helpful so far? Any recommendations for shrinking a fibroid? Subserosal fibroid grew 2 centimeters from 5.5 centimeters to 7.5 in 9 months. No symptoms from fibroid, just worried about growth. If surgery is needed, what's the best recommendation? My first question would be, have you done a full hormone workup? Is there an estrogen dominance? Number one, right? Relative estrogen dominance. That might mean that your estrogen's normal, but your progesterone is not. That might mean that it's, once again, goes back to the conversation we had earlier in this, where you want to look at the balance. Because if you do have an estrogen dominance, there are things you can do to reverse the estrogen dominance, right? Which is going to stop or slow the growth, because the growth is typically mediated by estrogen. Okay. So can you shrink it that way? Hasn't always shrunk in my experience, but I have been able to stop it from continuing to grow. And then in that case, if it is big and it is causing symptoms or pain or problems and it's removed, it doesn't grow back, right? So same with endometriosis. You have to get those estrogens under control. A lot of the times the fibroid gets so big that it's actually stimulating the estrogen dominance, and you do want to remove it. So there's a lot of little factors in there. I would say, number one, make sure you know your hormone levels. You screen your sex hormones as well as your adrenal hormones, your thyroid hormones. There is quite a bit of research on different types of oils, like borage oil, primrose oil, on shrinking fibroids. I have had people get success with that. But for me, you always have to look at, why is it there in the first place? And we have to stop it from continuing, and then see, does it shrink? Does it cause problems? Do we want to remove it? Right? Typically, you want to do the most least invasive scenario. But I have had clients who have removed the fibroid and it has not come back, because we've kept a handle on their estrogens. That does not mean the birth control pill, guys. That means figure out the imbalances, support them. Always comes down to liver support. Anything hormonal always comes down to liver support. When you're under stress, you don't clear out of the liver, right? So I have people, here's a good point. I have people that come to me and say, well, I know my symptoms are hormonal because they happen only one day or 1 week of the month. Okay, could be hormonal. But then they have their hormones drawn and they go, but they're normal. They're in range. I don't understand though. It's always during this 1 week of the month. Now, keep in mind that if your body is under stress, it's not going to clear hormones as well. It's not going to clear the liver as well. So what may happen when all those hormones are released at certain signs in your cycle, like say ovulation or during the luteal phase, is the body can't clear them fast enough because the liver is bogged down. That's a liver and an adrenal issue, not a hormone issue. So what will often happen is people treat the hormones and they're like, yeah, but my symptom's still there, or it's not working, or, so keep in mind that these all interplay with each other. So simply treating the hormones by giving a birth control pill to lower the hormones is not going to fix the problem, but it will slow the growth. Why? Because you've lowered the hormones. So do that naturally. Why do it with the birth control pill? It's totally possible. Does that help? Any iron supplements you could recommend? I like, plant-based iron supplements. So if you want one that's over the counter, Vitamin Code Raw Iron is a good one. Floridex, I like. It's a liquid. They also make a capsule. That one has a lot of herbs in it as well. So that's a good over-the-counter one. That's not professional line, but that still is good. The reason I like those is they absorb better. And they don't give constipation. So you go to your Walgreens or CVS or Costco or whatever, and you buy iron tablets, you'll notice there's quite a side effect there. I also find they don't absorb as well. Okay, I got a couple more questions here and then I'm out, guys. Can a bad back alignment somehow affect your organs? Yes, absolutely. For example, I lay down and I don't feel my back touching floor all the way. And then I sometimes feel like gas moving and my intestines pushing a hard ball out and it moves back. Yeah. So yes, posture alignment is very important to gut health. And so keep in mind, they're all connected, and our core muscles, our pelvic floor muscles, all of these things play a role in where the organs sit in your body. One of the exercises we do in Pilates is a bridge with a very specific drop into the abdominal cavity. Why do we do that? To help reassemble those organs back into the back of the cavity so they're not sitting forward. Things do move around, right? So can malalignment cause problems? Of course. There's been times I've gone to the chiropractor and all of a sudden that stimulates my digestion to clear everything out. So absolutely, particularly that psoas muscle. which runs on the anterior side of your back, so like behind your organs, can get really tight, particularly if you're under stress, and it will actually push on the colon and cause problems. So absolutely. I would highly recommend core strength training, Pilates, yoga, inversion poses, things like that. Those types of things, put them back in. Yeah. And a good chiropractor if you have one. What fiber supplement do you use? There's a couple of them. I like Orthomolecular makes one called Fiber Plus, but that's a professional line product. I use professional line products, so I don't know what's available. I'm not a huge fan of psyllium. So when people are like, oh, I use Metamucil. First of all, Metamucil is full of a bunch of crap. I'm just going to be blunt there. It's full of a bunch of crap. And it's psyllium, which can cause a lot of bloating. So I tend to use things like apple pectin, flax, chia. So those are some foods you can do to get more fiber. You can just add flax seeds to things, ground flax seeds. You can do chia seeds. One of my favorite breakfasts are chia puddings. You can look that up, chia pudding recipes. So I tend to use fibers that are more based like that. I don't use Metamucil or Citracel or whatever those crappy formulations are. My sutures for the severe laceration to the back of my head didn't really seem to heal properly. Okay, so we're going back to the traumatic brain injury, kids. My skull feels bumpy back there. So much to heal from. Thank you for your advice. You're welcome. It's a lot to heal. And give your body grace. It is healing. You woke up this morning. It's keeping you alive. It will be okay. It just may take longer than we expect, right? We have these expectations. So I'm going to be better in 3 weeks. Even this cough that's going around, everyone's like, well, it could last up to a month. It could not. Mine lasted 2 days, 3 days maybe, max. My husband's on week 6. Cameron had it for 3 days. It went away, came back 2 weeks later for 3 days, went away, right? Like we don't know, right? What is the wait list to work with you? And can you share more about the DIY options mentioned on your website? Thanks again. Sure. That's a great way to tie this out. Let me make sure. Let me answer this question first, and then let's talk about that. I just found out I have elevated testosterone without PCOS and was started on spironolactone. How should I find out the root cause of why it's elevated? You need to do a full workup. So if you type on this, any of my posts on Instagram or Facebook, the word labs, it will send you a DM with a link to download my lab list. I would make sure all of those are run and evaluated appropriately at the right time in your cycle. Okay. As for how can you work with me? My wait list. So I offer a couple different ways to work with me. Number one is a one-on-one. So you and me, we're in it together, right? And that is a concierge medical model. So basically, typically with new patients, it's a 6-month commitment with appointments where we meet basically every month. And you also have 24-hour basically or 7-day-a-week support. So you can reach out to me at any time, ask questions, we modify, we work together very closely. My wait list for that is I look every single month. So basically the way it goes is people start with me. I see them more often. As they get better, they see me less, right? So their plan moves down. So as people move down a step each month, I'm able to bring in a new patient. So typically I only know if I have availabilities by just before the first of the month. So I might be able to anticipate the next 2 months. I do have 1 spot in January available right now. 1. As people get better. The goal with me, as much as I'd love to meet with you every single day, but my goal is to get you well. So ultimately people get well and they step down in plan. So I only take a set number of people because I want to be available to you. I will not crowd my schedule where I can't support my patients. It's just the way it is. I will not do that. I will not do that to myself, and I will not do that to my patients. I want my patients to be able to reach me. I want them to be able to get their questions answered, and I want us to have a relationship. So I only take so many new clients per year, and it's really based on how many people have moved down, right? And who's on what plan. So I have 1 spot available in January. February is still to be determined. I might have 1, I might not. I'll let you know. Best way to apply to work one-on-one with me is to go to my website, fill out an application. Just go to the work with me page, fill out an application, gets your health history. When we look at that, sometimes you're not a candidate for concierge. Maybe there's a financial limitation. Maybe maybe you have some really chronic disease that's currently being worked on. I had someone reach out that's in active cancer treatment. Like that's not something that I'm able to do from afar, right? So, and I don't treat cancer. I have post-cancer clients, but I don't have particularly during active phase. So I make sure that it's something that we can do at this time. And then I set up a call and we talk about the options, okay? So that is more of a financial and time investment. We're in it together. I do have a group program I run a couple times a year called the Total Energy Turnaround Program. So if you type in make sure you put the Total Energy Turnaround Program, or you can go to my link in bio and find it. I run it. It's a group program where we go through those 4 pillars. So it's self-led, but with me guiding you in a group. And we go through the nutrition portion. We learn education on that. There's a meal plan that helps you eat for your adrenal health. And it has actual recipes. We can customize on some of our live group calls. There's exercise plan. We talk about supplements and the type of supplements that might be best for you, and a lot of mindset work. And that runs 12 weeks. I think I'll be launching that again. It'll either be March or April. We'll be making that decision in the next couple of weeks. And then if you're someone who's kind of a DIY, you look for the book, Total Health Turnaround, which talks about just the education surrounding stress and how it impacts each system, and kind of gives you a baseline 30-day program in there. The 30-day program in my book is not as interactive or as involved or as detailed as it is in the 12-week program. Does that help? And then I do have a supplement store, which talks about all of the, which has the supplements that most people with adrenal fatigue need. Okay? All of this the cost can range based on the plan. So the Total Energy Turnaround Program, last time I discounted it, it was typically around $2,000 for the 12 weeks. It was discounted to $1,000. I don't know what the price point is going to be this time. I haven't sat down and decided. It'll be somewhere in that range, $1,000 to $2,000. Concierge plans typically start higher than that. And it comes down to, these are all customized. My patients do not fit in one box. So we have a conversation, we figure out what the needs are, we figure out what's going to work to actually get you well. And then I give a price quote on that call. And then I do have payment plans. So, if you're ready to make that investment and you're ready to get well and you're like, yes, I want to work with you one-on-one, most of the time, if you're ready for that or not. And then obviously as you get well, the plan price goes down. So the book is $22, I think. Something like that. Do you work with people in Europe? I don't. I'm not licensed in Europe. Thank you, Dr. Pingel, for the talk on cortisol and the immune response. It's so fascinating. You're amazing and wonderful. We appreciate you so much for sharing your knowledge. Oh, thank you. I appreciate you guys showing up. I hope your questions were answered today. If you do want to work with me one-on-one, if you're interested in that spot in January, get your application in ASAP. I'll be reviewing them next week. So I review them at the beginning of every month and I look at what I have available and we move from there. If you're looking for the Total Energy Turnaround Program, you actually can go to that website and sign up for the wait list, which will give you, usually what I'll do for people that are on the wait list is they'll get a little bit more incentive on the price point to sign up right away. So if you're looking for that incentive, sign up for the wait list, you'll get the offer for that first. I take people who are on the wait list first before I add more people in. There is a cap on that, but I can hold a lot more people in that group than I can in one-on-one. So cool. Hey guys, I will see you next year. Can you believe it? Happy end to 2023. You guys have been awesome. I loved the conversation today about stress and immune system and hormones. I hope it was educational to you. If you found this helpful, if you're watching me on YouTube, follow me. Follow this page. We'll put more out there. Share it with other people on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Let's get more people in here, more conversation. The more we talk about, the healthier we become. So thank you so much. And to all of you that were new, welcome. I hope to see you next week. I will be here next Friday, ready for the next live Q&A. Already signed up for the wait list, but didn't get anything. Yeah, I haven't picked for the Total Energy Turnaround, you mean? I haven't picked the start date yet, so we haven't sent out any promotional information. But when we do, the incentive will go to anyone who's on the wait list first before it goes to the general public. I'm probably going to guess, I don't know exactly. My guess is I'll start sending stuff out in February because I'm not sure if I'm going to start March or April. So we're trying to figure that timing out because I do have to be present and available for it. So I want to make sure that I'm there to lead the lessons and all that. So, but do keep an eye out on that and make sure that you've added contact@drpingel.com to your approved senders list. Sometimes it goes to spam. So, okay, guys, thank you. Happy New Year. I will see you next week.